the flag.
All right.
Like, we've invented new ways to cause me.
All right. So welcome back to the show. Let's listen to the SEC Commissioner, Greg Sankey.
That was a massive talking point. Now, I'd like to argue from a player's perspective, and I'm sure you've heard this. The conversation around this modern era of college football is that because of the transfer portal and because of the money, kids don't care anymore. Kids aren't invested. They don't have as much passion or loyalty to teams. So I appreciate the fact that there were some teams that saw their field getting disrespected and said, we got to do something about it. Now, with that being said, it can't be every game. It's not great for anybody to have those pictures be what people who don't watch college football see of college football and think that these meatheads can't control themselves. They do this entire thing. I think there is a silver lining in it, but I don't think it can become common occurrence. What is your kind of rules on it down here in the SEC, and how often does it take place then?
We had not had that for probably since 17-18. So we have a few intense rivalries that last week. We have rivalries every week.
Yeah,
in the Egg Bowl, we had a couple of circumstances that repeated themselves, sat down with the athletics directors, and we actually removed the flags just because we didn't want that problem to continue to manifest itself. Because the intensity I get, there'll be moments when teams kind of come together and have a little bit of a verbal jousting. I understand that. That's part of the intensity. You don't want that every week, but that's part of the intensity. It'll happen after play. We had a couple of blocks like into the bench over the weekend too. I think that shows the intensity. But the flag planting, my quote to Ross Dellinger was, "Hey, plant a flag, join the military, play capture the flag, fly to the moon." Those are good flag planting places. Use the energy to compete, man. Use the energy to compete.
Hey, that's a great quote. You felt good about that whenever... Yeah,
when I gave it, I did. It was Sunday afternoon. Sunday afternoon, he texted me and said, "Hey, I want to talk about the fight in FSU in Florida." I'm like, "Hey, we have stuff happen, and we've had what I consider to be fights." That was just like, I don't appreciate you putting the flag down with probably some other colorful words, a bit of pushing. And, Billy, Mike obviously pointed it to Billy, and I'm not going to evaluate everything. Billy got in there and started to be part of the solution. There were a lot of guys in that were part of the solution, and that's what you want. You want the competitive fire, but not after the game. The competitive fire in the game is the reality we see.
Age, obviously Ohio State was a part of the big one with Michigan there that really set the entire day off, I think. I love that Jack Sawyer want to fight guys that plant a flag on his field. I think from a player's perspective, and I know obviously you have massive brain, you're like, we looked at it, we think you're the second most powerful person in sports. So good for you. That's awesome. AJ, I think we've come to the decision just the no flag thing is probably the right move. That is probably the right move.
It's not going to end well. Like, I just don't see any way that it ends well. If it continues to happen... Also, we're playing on field turf now, boys. Like, it doesn't have the same oomph when you can't stick it in the ground. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, but when Baker did that to you guys at Horseshoe, it stayed up for a little bit. It was like a Chris Angel.
Baker's a bit of a magician. He did make that thing stand for 3 or 4 seconds. You're right.
It's like whenever somebody gets like a 4-legged chair to stand up on one of its legs, so it's like a balancing act. Yes. Like Baker did that with the flag in real time. And then Bosa, remember, whenever he played against them with the Niners, he did the thing after a sec. It's like the flag... Planting your flag, saying this is mine, is a big deal. I appreciate the fact that you're going to have to handle that. Speaking of handling that, 2 teams are going to battle tomorrow to handle who's champion of the Southeastern Conference. We talked to Coach Saban earlier. He told us a story about no pro teams, since the 1970s. People have just been growing up with these schools. Georgia, obviously, in the middle of a potential dynastic run. They win a national championship. You're talking 3 out of 4 years. You're talking about being something very, very special. They've had a hard road to get here. Texas, brand new to your conference. Is that good thing, bad thing? And how do you view the game that's taking place tomorrow?
I haven't viewed like good, bad. I view it as reality. And remember, Texas was announced along with Oklahoma back in 21, so they've had 3 years to prepare. They knew the destination was...
Saban said that as well.
Yeah, and 6 weeks after we announced the invitation, they were in Fayetteville, Arkansas. Arkansas beat them that night. I think that's one of those lessons along the way. Steve had been with Nick a couple of times. He obviously been on the Falcon staff here, but Steve had lived the SEC life as an offensive coordinator. In fact, one of my, forever remembering phone calls is Thanksgiving of 20 when Nick tests positive for COVID, and I'm talking to him about, Steve has to coach the Iron Bowl. He has to make those decisions. And I think all of that...
But then he cured it. That was 26 hours, wasn't it, if I recall? Coach Saban had to.
No, that was the first time. It was a false positive.
false positive.
Then he had it for real, for the Iron Bowl.
Okay.
And
Later.
Steve's coaching in the Iron Bowl. My point being is there's been a lot of preparation, so I don't view it as good or bad. I view it as the competitive reality. And you saw a great game plans by both teams. Georgia had the edge, and we'll see what happens tomorrow. I was at the A&M Texas game. The defense is probably another level as they've grown during the season. You watch Carson and man, that second half against Alabama, tough first half, but that is a resilient competitor. And even the Georgia Tech game to go 8 overtimes, to come back the way they did is a tribute to what can happen on the field when you have these competitive opportunities, which I think is what high-level players seek. They cherish this. So all the noise about conference championship game misses, this is what the people on the field cherish.
Yeah, absolutely. Hang a banner, brother. Get a ring. I mean, that's anytime you get a chance to celebrate beating opponents, you're certainly going to do that. They've talked. Coach Saban talked about it. Herb Street has talked about it before. There's just a palpable buzz in the air at these SEC championships. So congratulations on having a conference that is always invested and always cares. How hands-on are you with scheduling of the SEC? Because Texas got a light SEC schedule, allegedly. You know, and then obviously Georgia had a very strong SEC schedule. How does that get figured out? Is that you guys? Who does that?
It comes from the conference office, and we spent years. What we did, we had to look back, trying to narrow the competitive disparity. And all you can do is look at history. So we went back post-expansion in the SEC to figure out the dynamics of wins and loss percentage. Like if you could have a perfect